The Great Chamber of Convergence Prime was enormous. It floated in neutral space, far from any home world. Inside, representatives from 43 different species sat in their designated seats. The chamber was built to show power and importance. Every surface gleamed with precious metals. Holograms floated in the air, displaying data and documents. Ambassador Chen Wei sat in the human section. It was smaller than most other sections. Humans controlled only 52 star systems. Other species controlled hundreds, even thousands. Chen Wei had been doing this job for 8 years. Before her, other human ambassadors had done the same work for nearly 200 years. The current debate was about trade routes. 3 major shipping lanes passed through human territory. The council wanted to use those lanes without paying the standard fees. They called it a contribution to galactic harmony. Chen Wei called it theft, though never out loud. The humans must understand, said Councillor Dravix of the Althorian Combine, that they are part of a greater community. These small fees they demand show a lack of vision. Chen Wei kept her face neutral. The fees weren't small. They would cost human colonies millions of credits in lost revenue. But she had learned not to argue too forcefully. It made the council members angry. We simply ask for fair compensation, Chen Wei said calmly. The maintenance of those routes requires significant resources. Several council members made sounds that might have been laughter in their species. Ambassador Varix of the Zelthian Empire leaned forward. His scales caught the light, making him look like he was covered in jewels. Fair compensation, Varix repeated, his voice dripping with amusement. The jumped-up primitives want to lecture us about fairness. Your species only achieved faster than light travel 200 years ago. My people were building empires when your ancestors were living in caves. More laughter echoed through the chamber. Chen Wei felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her expression blank. This was not the first insult. It would not be the last. The Zelthian Empire's long history is well known, Chen Wei replied. However, the age of a civilization does not determine the fairness of a trade agreement. Perhaps the humans need time to think, suggested Councillor Thren of the Paxian League. They are young. They do not understand how galactic politics work. We should table this discussion and return to it next session. The motion passed quickly. Chen Wei was not surprised. Every human proposal was either rejected or delayed. Every human complaint was ignored or dismissed. For 2 centuries, humanity had been patient. They had been polite. They had followed every rule and protocol. And for 2 centuries, they had been treated like children at an adult's table. Chen Wei requested a recess. The council granted it, probably grateful to move on to more important matters. She walked through the corridors of Convergence Prime to the human diplomatic quarters. Her team was waiting. Well? Asked Jin Park, her senior aide. The same as always, Chen Wei said. She sat down heavily. Varix called us jumped-up primitives. The council laughed. The trade route proposal was tabled. That's the 14th proposal they've rejected this year, said Maria Santos, the trade specialist. And we're only in month 8. Chen Wei activated the quantum communication array. It was expensive to use, but this was important. The connection took a moment to establish. Then she was looking at a room on Earth, where the Secretary General and several other officials were gathered. Madam Secretary General, Chen Wei said, I need guidance. Today was particularly bad. She explained the session. She explained Varix's insult and the council's laughter. She explained how every human initiative was blocked, how every human concern was dismissed. The officials listened in silence. Ambassador Chen, the Secretary General finally said, We've been discussing this situation for some time. The cabinet has met. The General Assembly has voted. We believe it's time for a change in strategy. Chen Wei felt something shift in her chest. Hope, maybe. Or relief. What are your orders? She asked. Walk away, the Secretary General said simply. Humanity is done begging for respect we'll never receive. Withdraw from the Council. Withdraw from all treaties and obligations. Bring our people home. Chen Wei closed her eyes for a moment. 200 years of diplomacy. Ending just like that. But she also felt the weight lifting from her shoulders. Understood, she said. I'll inform the Council immediately. When the recess ended, Chen Wei walked back into the great chamber. The Council members were discussing something else now. Barely noticing her return, she waited for a break in the conversation, then stood. I have a brief statement, she announced. Councillor Thren looked annoyed at the interruption. Yes, Ambassador? Have the humans decided to accept our generous terms? No, Chen Wei said. Her voice was calm and clear. Humanity withdraws from all Galactic Council proceedings, treaties, and obligations. Effective immediately. Good luck. The chamber went silent. Then Varric started laughing. Is this a negotiating tactic? He asked. How primitive. You cannot threaten us with your absence. Chen Wei didn't respond. She simply turned and walked toward the exit. Her team followed her. Behind them, the council chamber erupted in noise. Some members were laughing. Others were calling for her to return. A few seemed concerned. Chen Wei kept walking. At the docking bay, the human ships were already preparing for departure. Chen Wei had sent the order ahead. The diplomatic staff moved efficiently, loading the last supplies and equipment. Within an hour, the human vessels undocked from Convergence Prime. Chen Wei stood on the bridge of the lead ship, watching the station grow smaller on the view screen. Around her, the crew worked quietly. No one seemed sad to be leaving. Navigation, Chen Wei said. Course laid in, Ambassador. Take us home. As the human ships jumped into faster-than-light travel, Chen Wei allowed herself a small smile. Behind them, she knew the council was probably still laughing. They thought humanity was insignificant. They thought humans would come crawling back within months. They were wrong. But they would learn that lesson soon enough. For now, humanity was going home. And they wouldn't be coming back until things changed. 3 months passed since the human ships left Convergence Prime. The Galactic Council continued its work as if nothing had changed. Ambassador Varric made jokes about the human tantrum during several sessions. Other members laughed along. After all, humanity was insignificant. They controlled barely 50 systems in a galaxy of thousands. But junior diplomat Kess of the Paxian League was starting to notice things. She worked in the Department of Trade and Commerce, handling the boring daily reports that senior diplomats never read. Recently, those reports had been showing strange patterns. Small problems, nothing major. But they were adding up. Councillor Thren, Kess said during a morning briefing, there's been a 20% increase in piracy along the Outer Rim trade routes. Thren barely looked up from his datapad. Pirates are always a problem. Increase patrols. We've increased patrols, Kess said carefully. But the pirates seem more organized now. Then increase patrols again, Thren said, annoyed. Is there anything else? Kess hesitated. Sir, these are the routes that human ships used to patrol. They called it trade protection. But the humans are gone, Thren interrupted. We don't need them. Is that all? Kess bowed and left, but she kept watching the reports. On the far side of Council space, the disputed border region was having problems too. For 40 years, this area had been peaceful. The Zelthian Empire and the Kryn Coalition both claimed the territory, but neither side had fought over it. Human mediators had been meeting with both sides regularly, finding compromises and keeping tempers cool. Now there were no human mediators, and tempers were not cool anymore. A Zelthian patrol ship crossed into territory the Kryn considered theirs. The Kryn fired warning shots. The Zelthians fired back. 3 ships were destroyed before both sides retreated. It was the first violence in the disputed border region in decades. Ambassador Varric demanded the Council condemn Kryn aggression. The Kryn representative demanded the Council condemn Zelthian invasion. The debate lasted 6 hours and accomplished nothing. Both sides left angry. Then came the disease. Crimson flux was not new. It appeared every few years on various worlds, killing thousands before burning out. But humanity had developed a treatment 15 years ago. It wasn't a cure, but it reduced deaths by 90%. Human medical ships had been distributing the treatment freely to any world that needed it. Now there were no human medical ships. And Crimson Flux had appeared on 3 colonies simultaneously. "We need the human treatment," said the Vorash representative, her voice desperate. "One of those colonies is ours. 10,000 people are infected. Can we produce the treatment ourselves?" asked Counselor Dravix. The chief medical officer checked his files. The humans shared the basic formula, but the manufacturing process is complex. We would need 6 months to set up production facilities. 6 months? The Vorash representative stood, her fur standing on end. "Our people will be dead in 6 weeks. Perhaps we can purchase the treatment from the humans," someone suggested. The council sent a formal request to Earth. The humans responded within a day. They would sell the treatment at standard medical supply rates. The price was fair, even generous. But it was no longer free. More problems appeared. The quality sector experienced a reactor meltdown. Human engineers had been providing free technical support to older stations for decades. Now that support was gone, and the quality didn't have the expertise to fix the problem themselves. 3 million people had to evacuate. The agricultural worlds in the Hessen region had relied on human-designed irrigation systems. The systems were breaking down, and no one else knew how to repair them. Crop yields were dropping. Food prices were rising. Junior diplomat Kess compiled all the data into a report. She brought it to Counselor Thren. "Sir, I think we have a serious problem." Thren looked at the report. His expression slowly changed from annoyance to concern. "How long has this been happening?" "It started immediately after the humans left," Kess said. "But it's getting worse. The humans weren't just participating in galactic affairs, sir. They were maintaining critical systems. They were solving problems before they became crises. And they did it so quietly that no one noticed." Thren sat back in his chair. "How many systems are affected?" Kess pulled up her data. Based on trade records, medical reports, and security analysis, human ships or personnel were actively supporting infrastructure in over 300 systems. Most of those systems didn't even realize it was happening. 300 systems, Thren repeated quietly. "And that's just what I could find in the official records," Kess added. "I think there's more we don't know about." And, meanwhile, in the empty spaces between council worlds, something else was happening. The Veen Collective had always been a minor threat. They were raiders and pirates, too disorganized to be truly dangerous. The council had posted warnings about them, but never took military action. The humans had taken action, though. Not officially. Human ships would appear when Veen raiders attacked, driving them off. Human intelligence officers would infiltrate Veen bases and sabotage their operations. The Veen never expanded because humanity had been quietly stopping them for decades. Now humanity was not stopping them, and the Veen were expanding rapidly. A Veen fleet attacked a mining colony in the outer reaches. The colony's defenses were minimal. They had always relied on human patrol ships, arriving quickly if there was trouble. No human ships came. The Veen destroyed the colony and took everything of value. The council emergency meeting was tense. "The Veen have taken 3 colonies in 2 weeks," reported the security chief. "They're moving toward more populated areas." "Where are the defense forces?" demanded Ambassador Varix. "Spread too thin," the security chief admitted. "We've had to increase patrols in a dozen sectors due to rising piracy. We don't have ships to spare." "I'm C." Counselor Thren stood up. "I think we need to reconsider our position regarding the humans." "Absolutely not," Varix snapped. "We don't need those primitives. This is just a temporary adjustment period." "Is it?" Thren gestured to the data displays. Piracy is up 40%. We have wars starting in the border regions. Disease outbreaks we can't treat. And now the Veen are launching a major expansion. All of this began when the humans left. Coincidence? Varix insisted. Is it? Thren challenged. The debate continued for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. They would send a diplomatic mission to Earth. Not to apologize. Exactly. Just to request that humanity reconsider its position. For the good of the galaxy. The mission arrived at Earth 3 days later. They were received politely. Human officials listened to their presentation. Then, they responded. We appreciate the Council's concerns, said the Human Secretary General. However, humanity is currently focused on our own interests and development. We're confident the Council will find solutions to these challenges. After all, you have thousands of years of experience and wisdom. You've made it clear that you don't need help from jumped-up primitives. The words were polite. The meaning was clear. The diplomatic mission returned to Convergence Prime empty-handed. In her small office, Junior Diplomat Kess looked at her growing file of problems and wondered how much worse things would get before the Council admitted the truth. They had made a terrible mistake. 8 months after humanity's withdrawal, the Galactic Council chamber looked different. The holograms now showed red warning indicators across dozens of sectors. The representatives looked tired and frustrated. Several seats were empty because those diplomats were dealing with crises on their home worlds. The border war between the Zelthian Empire and the Kryn Coalition had escalated. What started as a single skirmish had grown into full military conflict. 12 battles had been fought in the disputed border region. Thousands of soldiers were dead. Both sides were demanding the Council take their side. The Kryn fired first, Ambassador Varix shouted, his scales darkening with rage. Only after Zelthian ships invaded our territory? The Kryn representative shot back. Counselor Thren tried to mediate, but neither side would listen to him. They wouldn't listen to anyone, the Council suggested. The Zelthians didn't trust Kryn allies. The Kryn didn't trust Zelthian allies. And neither side trusted neutral parties who had no experience with the region. What about the Althorians? Someone suggested. They've mediated disputes before. The Althorians mediated the Carvex trade war, Varix said bitterly. It took them 8 years, and the result satisfied no one. We need someone both sides trust. Someone with no interest in the outcome. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew who that described. No one wanted to say it. Meanwhile, the Veen Collective was becoming a real threat. They had taken 16 colonies and 2 minor space stations. Their fleet had grown from scattered raiders to an organized navy. Council defense forces tried to stop them, but every time they concentrated forces in one area, the Veen attacked somewhere else. They're using guerrilla tactics, reported Admiral Kess, the Council's military commander. Hit-and-run attacks. They strike fast, take what they want, and disappear before we can respond. Can't our intelligence predict their movements? Asked Counselor Dravix. We're trying, Kess admitted. But they've changed their communication methods. Our old intelligence networks aren't working anymore. In a secure facility far from the Council chamber, an intelligence analyst named Roth was discovering why. She was reviewing old reports, looking for patterns. What she found made her sick. The Human Intelligence Service had been feeding information to Council intelligence for decades. Not obviously. The data came through complex chains of sources and methods, but when Roth traced everything back, she found humans at the beginning of most successful operations. Human agents had infiltrated the Veen Collective. Human signals intelligence had been tracking Veen communications. Human analysis had been predicting Veen movements, and they had shared it all freely, disguised as coming from other sources. Now that information flow had stopped, the Council was blind. Roth brought her findings to her supervisor. He brought them to his supervisor. How much of our intelligence came from human sources? Kess asked. At least 40%, Roth said. Maybe more. They were very good at hiding their involvement. Kess looked at the star charts showing Veen positions. No wonder. We can't find them anymore. The refugee crisis was getting worse too. The border war had displaced millions of people. The Veen attacks had created millions more refugees. They were flooding into council worlds, overwhelming the support systems. We need more food, more shelter, more medicine, reported the Director of Humanitarian Affairs. The refugee camps are at 3 times their designed capacity. Where are the relief supplies? Asked Councillor Thren. Delayed, the director said tiredly. The distribution network is breaking down. We don't have enough ships or personnel to coordinate everything. Junior diplomat Kess, who had been promoted to full diplomat because of her earlier reports, spoke up. The humans were running the Galactic Relief Coordination Network. It wasn't official, but they managed most of the logistics. Can't we do it ourselves? Someone asked. We're trying, the director said. But the humans had developed very efficient systems over decades. We're basically starting from scratch. Fifth. Maddox Ply. Maddox Ply. Maddox Ply. We're basically starting from scratch. Then the pirates got bold. A major convoy carrying medical supplies to the plague worlds was attacked. The convoy had an escort of 6 council warships. The pirates had 15 ships and better weapons. They destroyed the convoy, killed everyone aboard, and took everything. Where did pirates get military-grade weapons? Demanded Ambassador Varix. We think from the Veen, Admiral Kess reported. They're cooperating now. Pirates and raiders are working together. This is chaos, someone said quietly. It was the first time anyone had used that word officially. But everyone knew it was true. Councillor Thren stood up. His usually calm expression was gone. He looked angry. We need to talk about the humans, he said. Not this again, Varix groaned. Yes, this again. Thren snapped. Look around. Everything is falling apart. The humans didn't just participate in galactic civilization. They were holding it together. They were the mediators everyone trusted. They were the peacekeepers in a dozen sectors. They were the intelligence network tracking our enemies. They were the relief coordinators, feeding refugees. They were doing 100 critical jobs, and they did them so quietly that we never noticed. We can adapt, Varix said, but he sounded less certain than before. Can we? Thren gestured to the displays. In 8 months, we've lost more territory than in the previous 50 years. We have wars we can't stop, enemies we can't find, refugees we can't feed. How much worse does it have to get before we admit we were wrong? The Council voted to send another diplomatic mission to Earth. This time, they sent High Counselor Thesser herself. She was the Council's leader, the most respected diplomat in the galaxy. If anyone could convince the humans to return, it was her. Thesser arrived on Earth with a formal apology and generous terms. The humans would get better trade agreements, more representation on the Council, official recognition of their contributions. The Secretary General met with her personally. They talked for 6 hours. When Thessar returned to her ship, she looked defeated. What did they say? Asked her aide. They said no, Thessar replied quietly. They were very polite about it. But the answer was no. Did they give a reason? Thessar nodded slowly. The Secretary General said that for 200 years, humanity served the galaxy without asking for anything in return. They mediated disputes. They protected trade routes. They fought pirates and raiders. They provided medicine and aid. They did all of this because they believed in the idea of galactic civilization. And for 200 years, the Council treated them like children, made jokes about them, dismissed their concerns, called them primitives. Thessar sat down heavily. She said that humanity finally understands that respect cannot be begged for. It must be demanded, and the only way to demand it is to show what the galaxy loses without them. So they won't come back? Not until things change. Thessar looked at her aide. She told me that humanity wishes us well. They hope we solve our problems. But they're done being the galaxy's servants, while being treated as the galaxy's fools. The diplomatic ship returned to Convergence Prime. Thessar delivered her report to the full council. When she finished, the chamber was silent. How long can we last like this? Someone finally asked. No one had an answer. But they were all thinking the same thing. The galaxy was burning. And the only ones who knew how to put out the fire were the ones they had driven away. 14 months after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy was in crisis. The word that Counselor Thren had used months ago was now official. Chaos. The Zelthian-Kryn War had spread. 4 more species had joined the fighting, taking sides based on old alliances and ancient grudges. The disputed border region was now a war zone spanning 15 star systems. Ships were destroyed daily. Colonies were evacuated. The death count was in the hundreds of thousands and climbing. The Veen Collective controlled a quarter of the outer reaches. Their fleet was now larger than several council member navies. They were attacking trade routes in the Middle Territories, getting bolder every week. Council forces couldn't stop them. Every victory against the Veen came at terrible cost, and there were more losses than victories. The refugee crisis had become a humanitarian disaster. 40 million displaced people were scattered across council space. The relief systems had completely broken down. People were starving in camps that were supposed to be temporary, but had become permanent. Disease was spreading. Children were dying. Several council member species were facing economic collapse. The trade routes were too dangerous. Pirates took 1 ship in 5. Insurance costs had increased so much that many companies simply stopped shipping. Worlds that relied on imported food were rationing. Planets that exported goods had warehouses full of products they couldn't sell. And then there were the resignations. 3 council members had formally withdrawn from the council. They said they needed to focus on defending their own worlds, since the council couldn't defend them. 2 more were threatening to leave. The council's authority was crumbling. In the council chamber, Ambassador Varix looked like he had aged 10 years. His scales were dull. His movements were slow. Several Zelthian colonies had been destroyed in the war. His government was demanding he fix the situation, but he had no idea how. "I need to make a personal appeal," he said during a session. His voice was quiet, not the booming, confident tone everyone remembered. "To whom?" asked Counselor Thren. "To the humans," Varix said. "There's a human I worked with years ago, before all of this. Ambassador Johnson Park. We weren't friends. Exactly. But we respected each other. Maybe he'll listen to me." No one objected. They were desperate enough to try anything. Varix sent a private message to Park, who was now retired and living on Earth. To everyone's surprise, Park agreed to talk. They met via secure video link. "Ambassador Varix," Park said. He looked older too, but healthier than Varix. Calmer. "Ambassador Park," Varix said. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with me." "Of course." "What can I do for you?" End quote. Varix hesitated. Apologies didn't come easily to Zelthians. But he had been thinking about this for weeks. "I was wrong," Varix said finally. "I called your people primitives. I laughed at your proposals. I dismissed your concerns, and I was wrong about all of it." Park said nothing, just listened. "My people are dying," Varix continued. 3 colonies have been destroyed. The war is tearing my empire apart, and I can't stop it. The council can't stop it. We need help. We need humanity's help. "What exactly do you want us to do?" Park asked. "Mediate," Varix said. "You're the only ones both sides trusted, the only ones with no stake in the outcome. Please, I'm begging you." Park was quiet for a long moment. "Ambassador Varix, I'm retired. I don't speak for Earth's government, but I can tell you what they would say if you asked them. They would say that you spent 200 years making it clear you didn't want or need humanity's help. I understand, Varric said. But surely Earth doesn't want to see millions die. That's not who humans are. You're right. Park agreed. That's not who we are. But we also can't be the galaxy's solution to every problem, while being treated as the galaxy's joke. Respect isn't something you ask for only when you need something. The connection ended. Varric sat alone in his office for a long time after that. Meanwhile, Council intelligence was discovering something terrifying. Analyst Roth had been digging deeper into old files, trying to understand what else the humans had been doing quietly. What she found made her call an emergency meeting with Admiral Kess and High Counselor Thessar. "There's something you need to see," Roth said. She pulled up classified files. 26 years ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected unusual readings from beyond the galactic rim. Strange energy signatures. The reports were filed and forgotten. "Why?" asked Thessar. "Because 3 days after each report was filed, the readings stopped," Roth explained. The stations assumed it was equipment malfunction or natural phenomena, but it wasn't. Kess guessed. "No," Roth confirmed. She pulled up more files. "I found human military reports from the same time periods. They call it the Void Swarm, some kind of hostile entity from deep space, and humanity has been fighting them for decades." The room went cold. "How many battles?" Thessar asked quietly. "At least 40 major engagements," Roth said. "Maybe more." The humans built a whole defensive network in deep space. Monitoring stations, defense platforms, rapid response fleets. They've been protecting the galaxy from an existential threat, and no one knew. "Why didn't they tell us?" Kess demanded. "I think they tried," Roth said. She pulled up old council records. "Look at this. 18 years ago, Ambassador Chen Wei requested a council session to discuss deep space security concerns. The request was denied as not important enough for council time. By the ancestors," Thessar breathed. "They were trying to warn us. There's more," Roth said grimly. "Human activity in deep space has decreased significantly since they withdrew from the council. They're still maintaining their defensive line, but they've pulled back some forces." "And?" Kess asked, though he already knew the answer. "And the Void Swarm is pushing forward," Roth said. "They're testing the gaps in the defense line. Our monitoring stations are picking up the readings again. The humans are holding, but they're stretched thin." Kess stood up. "How long before the swarm reaches council space?" "Based on current rates of advance," Roth calculated, 6 weeks. Maybe 8, if the humans can slow them down. The emergency council session was the most frightening in galactic history. When Roth presented her findings, several representatives refused to believe it. But the data was clear. The Void Swarm was real, and it was coming. "How many ships do we need to stop them?" someone asked. "We don't know," Kess admitted. "We've never fought them. We don't know their capabilities or their numbers. Only the humans have that experience." "Then we ask the humans to share the information," suggested Counselor Dravix. "And if they refuse?" Varric asked bitterly. "We drove them away. They owe us nothing." The debate raged for hours. Finally, they did the only thing they could do. They sent an emergency beacon to Earth. Not a diplomatic message. Not a formal request. An emergency distress call. "We were wrong. We need you. The galaxy needs you. Please." The response came faster than expected. Just 6 hours after the beacon was sent. Message received. Stand by. That was all. But it was enough to give the Council the first hope they had felt in months. In deep space, beyond the rim of the galaxy, the Void Swarm was gathering for a major push. Their creatures, if they could be called that, were preparing to sweep into Council space. They had tested the defenses. They had found them weak. But they had not counted on one thing. The humans were not gone. And the humans were very, very angry. The Void Swarm attack began on a Tuesday morning. Council Standard Time. 3 worlds in the outer reaches detected incoming hostiles. By the time the warning reached the Council, it was too late. The creatures came from the dark between stars. They didn't use ships, like other species. They were biological entities that could survive in space, travel faster than light through means no one understood, and attack with devastating energy weapons that grew from their own bodies. The defense station at Helix Point fought for 20 minutes before being destroyed. The colony on Tarven 4 evacuated what people they could, but 500,000 were still on the surface when the swarm arrived. The colony was consumed in 3 hours. Admiral Kess watched the reports with growing horror. Council forces were trying to respond, but the swarm was everywhere at once, and they were spreading fast. 3 more worlds are under attack, reported his tactical officer. We don't have enough ships to defend them all. In the council chamber, panic was setting in. Representatives were shouting over each other. Some were demanding action. Others were trying to evacuate their people. Several were already preparing to flee Convergence Prime itself. High Counselor Thessar stood at the center of it all, trying to maintain order. But there was no order left to maintain. The galaxy was ending, and everyone knew it. And all away. Then the sensors picked up something new. Ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Lots of ships. Big ships. Counselor, said the station's defense coordinator, her voice shaking. We have multiple contacts. Unknown fleet. They're moving to intercept the swarm. The main view screen activated, showing the approaching fleet. The ships were human, but not like any human ships the Council had seen before. These were warships. Massive dreadnoughts with weapons that made Council battleships look like toys. Carriers launching swarms of fighters. Destroyers moving in perfect formation. There were hundreds of them. How? Someone whispered. How do the humans have this many military ships? The answer was simple and terrifying. While the Council had been dismissing humanity as primitives, humans had been building the most powerful navy in the galaxy. Not to conquer, not to threaten, but to protect the galaxy from threats the Council didn't even know existed. A communication signal came through. Everyone in the Council chamber jumped to open it. Admiral Zhang's face appeared on the screen. She was a tall woman, with gray hair and calm eyes. Behind her, the bridge of her ship showed organized activity. This is Admiral Zhang of the Earth Defense Fleet, she said. Her voice was formal but not cold. We received your distress call. We're engaging the Void Swarm now. Council forces should pull back to defensive positions and let us handle this. Admiral, Thessar said, finding her voice. Thank you. Stay out of our way, Zhang said simply. Then she smiled slightly. And maybe learn to trust us next time we warn you about something. The screen switched to tactical display. The Council watched as the human fleet tore into the Void Swarm with practiced efficiency. These weren't experimental tactics or desperate last stands. This was precision combat from forces that had been fighting this enemy for decades. Human dreadnoughts fired weapons that ripped through swarm creatures like they were paper. Fighter squadrons worked in perfect coordination, targeting weak points that only experience could teach. Carriers positioned themselves to provide overlapping fields of fire. Every movement was calculated. Every shot was effective. The swarm tried to adapt, using tactics that had worked before. They split their forces, trying to overwhelm through numbers. The humans had seen it before. The fleet adjusted instantly, formations shifting to counter the new threat. In 4 hours, the battle was over. The Void Swarm was destroyed or driven back into deep space. Not a single human ship was lost. 3 were damaged. Already being tended by support vessels, the Council chamber was silent. They had just watched a military operation beyond anything they had thought possible. The humans hadn't just stopped the swarm. They had destroyed it. Completely. Admiral Zhang's face appeared on screen again. The immediate threat is neutralized. We're establishing a defensive perimeter. Council worlds are safe. 1. Admiral, Thessar said slowly. How long have you been fighting these creatures? 32 years, Zhang replied. Since the first contact. We've fought them 47 times. This was actually a smaller incursion than most. Smaller. The attack that had terrified the entire council was small by human standards. Why didn't you tell us? Asked Councillor Dravix, though his voice was small now. Zhang's expression hardened slightly. We tried. Multiple times. The council thought we were exaggerating to seem important. After a while, we stopped trying to convince you and just handled it ourselves. And you'll keep fighting them? Someone asked. Even after everything? The swarm is everyone's enemy, Zhang said firmly. We won't let them destroy the galaxy. Just because the council insulted us. We're better than that. The screen went dark. The council sat in shocked silence. 48 hours later, Ambassador Chen Wei returned to Convergence Prime. She had retired from diplomatic service after the withdrawal. But Earth's government had asked her to come back for this one meeting. She walked into the council chamber like she had thousands of times before. But this time, every representative stood when she entered. This time, there was no laughter. Ambassador Chen, High Counselor Thessar said, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally apologize for 2 centuries of disrespect, dismissal, and ignorance. We were wrong. About everything. Chen Wei nodded but said nothing. We know now what humanity has done for the galaxy, Thessar continued. The trade routes you protected, the wars you prevented, the diseases you cured, the refugees you fed, and the enemy you fought alone while we mocked you. Ambassador Varric stood up. It clearly took effort. I personally apologize, Ambassador Chen. I called your people primitives. I was blind and arrogant. I'm sorry. Others stood too, adding their own apologies. Chen Wei let them speak. When they were done, she finally responded. Apologies are important, she said. But they're not enough. Humanity didn't leave because of a few insults. We left because the entire system was broken. You didn't respect us. You didn't value our contributions. You took everything we gave and offered nothing in return. What would you have us do? Thessar asked. That's not the right question, Chen Wei said. The question is, what kind of galactic civilization do you want? One where the strong dismiss the weak? Where experience is valued over results? Where service is expected but never acknowledged? Because humanity won't be part of that civilization. She pulled out a data pad. These are humanity's terms. Equal representation in the council. Binding agreements on mutual respect. Shared security responsibilities. Fair trade treaties. And formal recognition that every member species contributes something valuable, regardless of how old their civilization is. Thessar took the data pad. These terms are more than fair. There's one more thing, Chen Wei said. The most important thing. We will continue to serve the galaxy's well-being. We'll fight the swarm. We'll help in crises. We'll do all the things we did before. Because that's who we are. That's who humans are. 5. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative. But we will never again do so silently while being treated as inferior. We don't need constant praise. We don't need monuments built to us. But we demand respect. We demand to be heard. We demand to be valued as equal partners in galactic civilization. You have it, Varric said immediately. You have all of that. From me. From my people. I swear it. Others echoed his words. The vote to accept humanity's terms was unanimous. Earth rejoined the Galactic Council with full rights and recognition, but everyone knew something had changed. The power dynamic had shifted permanently. Humanity had shown what the galaxy looked like without them. No one would forget that lesson. 1 year later, Ambassador Chen Wei stood in the council chamber presenting a proposal on agricultural reform. It was a good proposal, carefully researched, and clearly beneficial to multiple species. Every council member listened intently. They asked thoughtful questions. They debated the details respectfully, and they approved the proposal with only minor amendments. After the session, Councillor Thren approached Chen Wei. "That was excellent work, Ambassador." "Thank you, Councillor." "I was wondering," Thren said carefully. "The disputed border region. The Zelthians and Kryn have agreed to mediation, but they need a mediator both sides trust. Would humanity be willing?" Chen Wei smiled. "We'll send a team next week." Thren bowed deeply and walked away. Chen Wei gathered her materials, preparing to leave. Junior diplomat Kess, now a senior analyst, was waiting in the corridor. "Ambassador," Kess said, "may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did you know?" Kess asked. "When you walked out that day, 14 months ago, did you know how bad things would get?" Chen Wei considered the question. "We knew the galaxy relied on us more than they realized. We knew that walking away would cause problems. But honestly, we didn't know how bad it would be. We were surprised too. So why did you leave?" "If you knew it would cause problems? Because being useful isn't enough," Chen Wei said gently. "Being necessary isn't enough. If people don't respect you, if they don't value you, then service becomes slavery. We had to show the galaxy that we had a choice, that we could leave. Only then could we return as true equals." Kess thought about that. It must have been hard, watching everything fall apart, knowing you could fix it. "The hardest thing we've ever done," Chen Wei agreed. "But it was necessary. And it was right." She started walking toward the docking bay. Kess walked with her. "What about the swarm?" Kess asked. "I've been reading the reports. They're still out there. They're always out there," Chen Wei said. "In the deep dark beyond the rim, human ships watch the border every day, every night, keeping the galaxy safe from an enemy most people will never see." "Do you think the Council understands that now?" Chen Wei smiled. "I think they're starting to. And that's enough. That's all we ever wanted. Just to be seen. Just to be heard. Just to be respected for who we are and what we do." They reached the docking bay. Chen Wei's ship was waiting. As she walked up the ramp, she looked back at Convergence Prime, the great station that had been the site of so many frustrations, so many disappointments. Now it looked different. Now it looked like home. The galaxy was recovering. The wars were ending. The refugees were being resettled. The pirates were being hunted down. Infrastructure was being rebuilt. And humanity was at the center of it all. Not as servants, but as partners. It had taken 2 centuries of patience and 14 months of absence. But finally, humanity had earned what they should have been given from the start: respect.